How are we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network. We welcome you back to our Panther Nation recap show, wrapping up Week 3 around the NCAA. Of course, your Pitt Panthers coming off a 23-17 victory over the number 9 Penn State Nittany Lions. Quadri Olison, 137 yards and 2 touchdowns, a pair of touchdowns, leading the Panthers. The game-tying touchdown in the final minute of regulation before the game-winning touchdown in the first overtime period for the Panthers. And it was one of those games where Penn State really dominated early. They missed a couple of definite chances to score touchdowns, a couple of definite chances where they could have gotten a lot of points early on, a couple drops in the end zone. They really left the Panthers off the hook, and Pitt made sure to capitalize. And it was really just a cataclysm of mistakes for the Nittany Lions. There's no doubt about that. The Panthers have to thank their lucky stars. They were outgained by 50 yards by Penn State. Penn State was 2 of 10 on third down. They were only 75% in the red zone compared to the Panthers' 100%. They had 1 turnover, and it was in the overtime frame. And then, of course, you have the just impressively bad clock management by James Franklin's team at the end of the fourth quarter when they could have went down and scored a winning field goal or a winning touchdown. You have the drops all over the field. Irvin Charles himself must have had 4 or 5 drops all on his own. And so the Panthers were able to be let off the hook a number of times there. That doesn't take away from the fact that Olison had a great game, 137 yards on the ground. Nice, just solid performance for him. Kenny Pickett was solid, if unspectacular, at quarterback. One of interception, of course, that will haunt him, I'm sure, over the middle. But he still fought back, did well, and was able to have a decent performance, no doubt about that. And, of course, that huge throw he had over the middle to Maurice French to keep the drive alive and get them down to scoring position, as well as the 4th down conversion that he had to Trey Tipton on the slant into zone coverage. A couple of really good throws from the quarterback there. So, you take the good with the bad. He played very well. Obviously, you'd like to have the interception back, but it's still a victory nonetheless. Rafael Araujo-Lopes, good solid 4-catch performance. He's leading the team in catches thus far this season with 10 already on 2 games of the season. Paris Ford continuing where he left off last year, 8 tackles. Sean Wolfgang, good to see him get a sack, as well as Philippi Motley in the nickel corner position. Some solid matchups from them. The big thing for Penn State that really helped the Panthers was that Saquon Barkley, Heisman contender, only got, I believe, 10 touches of the ball, 8 carries. He had 97 yards. He was averaging 12 yards a carry, and yet he got 8 carries on the ground game. McSorley had more carries than he did. Just unbelievable. Penn State, they were relying on the pass, which was working for them. McSorley, 24-38 for 231, but they had so many timely drops. You figure if they hand the ball off to Barkley there, surely he's got to be getting in the end zone on a couple of those first and goal, second and goals where they had the drops. 8 for 97, 12 yards a carry, a touchdown. What more could Barkley have done? He even had 2 catches, or he had 1 catch, so even 9 touches, not even 10. He had 9 touches in the game for over 90 yards. He was going for 10 yards a touch, and they just couldn't get the ball in his hands, so that's surely going to haunt the Nittany Lions. Play calling, clock management, and then a careless turnover at the least opportune time. There's no doubt about that. Now, a couple guys had huge games. Manny Bowen had a sack. Koa Farmer had 14 tackles and 2 pass deflections for the Nittany Lions, but it just wasn't enough. Your Pitt Panthers come away with the victory. A great team performance, one that they just really battled through adversity, came from behind, and came away with the victory. So, of course, your Pitt Panthers improved to 2-0 on the season. You'd expect to probably see them jump into the rankings this week. But let's take a look around the rest of the ACC. North Carolina State, they've improved to 3-0, 31-10 win over Old Dominion. Syracuse stays unbeaten with a victory 31-16 over Florida Atlantic. Florida State blows out Virginia in ACC matchup 49-13. Duke falls to Northwestern 34-27, drops to 0-2 on the year. BC goes 38-7 over Buffalo, improves to 2-0, stays unbeaten. Louisville 38-21 over Kentucky to pick themselves up after a week 1 loss. San Diego State blows out North Carolina, so the Tar Heels 1-1 after a 44-20 loss. Georgia Tech, easy victory over an FCS school, 59-0. And Ohio State 23-17 over Virginia Tech. And then upset alert, Nebraska 31-21 knocks off number 3 Miami. The Hurricanes, of course, missing starting quarterback Rozier, Malik Rozier. So they had Evan Sharif's in at quarterback, and it just wasn't his day. And the Hurricanes fall. So 2 big ACC programs go down in Virginia Tech and Miami. Around the country, UCF, the Panthers' upcoming opponent, with a huge 45-38 upset of number 8 TCU. So that does not bode well for the Panthers in this upcoming week. A big offensive output from UCF and quarterback Tyler Harris. LSU wins, Oklahoma State wins. Another upset as Mississippi State knocks off Auburn. Not really an upset, as Mississippi State was ranked to start the year, but they knock off Auburn. Stanford stays unbeaten, Tennessee unbeaten. Georgia in a ranked battle beats BYU 35-14. We've got Notre Dame blowing out UMass, Washington blowing out Boise State, Bama 42-10 over Colorado State. So some big wins there. UCLA in a shootout over Arizona. Rosen with 6 touchdowns in that matchup in the 52-36 win. And then, of course, your aforementioned Ohio State win, Nebraska win, and Oklahoma 52-17 getting revenge on Tulsa, who's beaten them in their last matchup last season when Oklahoma really struggled through the gate and finished, I think, with 6-6, somewhere horrible like that. Players of the week, J.J. Pinkney for Cincinnati, 3 interceptions in a win over San Jose State for the Bearcats. And then Lamar Jackson wins ACC and NCAA Player of the Week honors with a near 500-yard, 4-touchdown performance in the win over Kentucky, while Josh Brown's interception and 10 tackles seals him Defensive Player of the Week. As we look at the Heisman race, Saquon Barkley, he's still top because he didn't have a bad game. He had a touchdown, had 95 yards, but not great. Deshaun Kaiser moving up, Darius Geis moving up, Lamar Jackson with his "Don't Forget About Me" game, of course, nearly 500 yards. And then we got Quentin Dormady from Tennessee, the senior quarterback, 3-touchdown performance, gets his name into the race as the Vols 3-0, and could they be back? Some big programs putting statement seasons together. You got the likes of Texas, Tennessee coming back into the top 10. Georgia, UCLA getting to the top 10 as well, following the losses to the likes of Penn State and Miami, who dropped down to 15 and 16 respectively. Your Pitt Panthers get into the rankings at number 20 following their victory over Penn State. You can see them, they're followed up by Wisconsin, UCF, Oklahoma. TCU drops all the way back to 24th in the rankings as well, but the Panthers up to 20. That's the big story as it stands. And then if we come into this week, some big matchups: Miami and Clemson. Miami looks to get back on track. The Tigers have been off for a couple of weeks, so we'll see how they can shake off that rust and if Kelly Bryant can lead them to a victory in this matchup. BYU against Michigan. This really isn't a big game for BYU. It's a big game for Michigan because this is the Jim Harbaugh. If he loses this game, his seat is going to get very, very hot. Michigan has really underachieved with him as the head coach, and if they fall to 1-2 with a loss to BYU, I don't think there's any doubt about it. Harbaugh will be on the hot seat, so it remains to be seen what happens there. Florida takes on Tennessee. Big matchup as the Gators invade Rocky Top. Herbstreit's actually picking the Gators to win, so an upset bid on the road. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Georgia, Mississippi State, nice little SEC matchup. Your big game there, nighttime. You can expect the Bulldogs to put on a good performance in that one. Herbstreit has them winning. And then finally, your Pitt Panthers taking on the Central Florida Golden Knights, or Central Florida Knights as they were. It's going to be a good matchup. I think your big test, Central Florida's pass offense has been electric thus far this season. That was a real weakness for the Panthers over the last 2 seasons, but they've only given up an average of 147 yards through their first 2 games. Of course, that was helped by the rain and the drops against Penn State, as well as just UMass being fairly inept on offense. But the Pitt defense has really improved this season. Their rush offense has been spectacular, and they've been able to control the ball. UCF's rush defense, though, number 4 in the country, only 80 yards a game through 2 games. So if UCF can shut down this Panthers rushing attack that's been so dominant with Quadriolus and Darren Hall, and then can pass over the Pitt defense, which a lot of teams have shown the ability to do over the last couple years against Pat Narduzzi's defenses, then the Panthers could be in trouble. You can see UCF 28-14 over an FCS school to open the season, and then they beat TCU 45-38. Huge victory there, and that's going to give them tons of confidence going into the matchup with the Panthers. They're led by Tyler Harris at quarterback. 6 touchdowns, 2 picks, 533 yards on the season. In the win against TCU, had 5 touchdowns and 364 yards. He also ran for 84 yards, so he's a guy that you're going to have to watch all over the field. He's got his a rushing attack led by Wilson, who had 88 yards in that victory as well as 7 catches. So he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run with it. They got Smith, who's a great target as well. Really some solid offensive weapons. That's where UCF's most dangerous. Their defense, not particularly imposing. Of course, they got Gibson, very, very good strong safety in their secondary. Connors, defensive tackle, look to wreak some havoc. But otherwise, all of their top-ranked players are on the offensive side of the ball, and they're led by Tyler Harris, their quarterback. He's not a terribly strong arm. He's got like 83 throw power, but he's got 91 accuracy. So he's a guy that can put the ball where he wants. He's got it on a string, and he can lead UCF down the field very, very easily, as he did against TCF. Dontravius Wilson, solid runner. They got a good backup in McGowan as well. I think it's Trey McGowan. Two very good runners there that can interchange. And then, of course, they're led by Smith, Peyton, Snelson, some very talented receivers. Not overly fast, which I think is good for the Panthers because their corners should be able to hold up in man coverage, which of course is what Narduzzi likes to play, is man kind of almost exclusively. He'll throw the zone in depending on the way the rushing attack for the opponent's been going, but we'll see what the Panthers have to do. They've got a solid offensive line. Do UCF mid-80s kind of all around. We'll see what the likes of Sean Wolfgang, Keyshawn Camp, Amir Watts, and Dwayne Hendrick can wrap up for the Panthers. The big weakness is going to be linebacker for UCF. They really don't have a lot of talent there, so that's where you can get the likes of Olesen. If you can get him past that first level, past the line, he can create some havoc, as well as the slot receivers for the Panthers. If they're faced and manned up by those linebackers in any kind of situation, you should see the likes of Arujo Lopes have a big day, Trey Tipton have a big day, Maurice French, those guys with the speed, have a big day for the Panthers. So with this matchup, you'd expect the Panthers to have the talent to come away with a victory, but if UCF can get on the board early with a couple of early touchdowns, Panthers don't have the kind of explosive offensive attack to play catch up. So they'll have to control the game early on, and we'll expect the Panthers to come away with a victory. So let us know who you think is going to win in the comments. And as always, we'll see you for the Panthers this Saturday. Pitt UCF. Hail to Pitt. Take care. Bye-bye.